Manchester, no clue, far from the land. Tottenham stranded in shadows, no man's land. Lost on the pitch, echoes in the night. Fans screaming loud, no end in sight. Shift the blame like drifting sand. Promises empty, no steady hand. Wandering clueless in the football mist. Wishing for a twist, but nightmares persist. Shift the blame like drifting sand. Promises empty, no steady hand. Wandering clueless in the football mist. Wishing for a twist, but nightmares persist. Where's the Leo we waited in vain? Pains us deeply every season the same. No direction, stumbling blind. Tottenham's lost its mind. Speechless, impressed, they're at the ground. No solutions, nowhere to be found. Fans on the side, hearts turned to stone. Stadium echoes a lonesome drone. Whispers in the air, they speak of change. Hope on the horizon feels so strange. Question marks in every wayward pass, and close the future fading fast. Where's the Leo we waited in vain? Pains us deeply every season the same. No direction, stumbling blind. Tottenham's lost its mind. Where's the Leo we waited in vain? Pains us deeply every season the same. No direction, stumbling blind. Tottenham's lost its mind.
The first game we look for, Robbie. Tottenham away. When we got Tottenham away. Tottenham away. When we got Tottenham away.
All right, let me move that layout. Welcome to another episode of North London is Ours. A year where Arsenal has bottled the league. They have bottled the show. They're not here tonight. It's okay, but we still have the Spurs representation still here, and that's what all it counts. And we have a lot of topics to hit off the ground. And Dan, how are you doing, brother?
Same Spurs, different day.
As
What
always.
else do you really want me to say?
Exactly. And that's the response I want to hear. Because it's like Groundhog's Day. It's like over and over and over again. The same motion, the same pattern. Michael, how are you doing, brother?
Yeah, fine. A bit tired, but other than that, ready to talk about, our lovely club. And I guess we won't be talking about Arsenal much since there are no, Arsenal representatives, right?
But
It's a shame. It's a shame. I'd have liked to have had a chat with a few of them.
next week. But you know what? We can bring them up because they're in a different situation. The title of the show is "Does the League Matter Anymore?" And so it's our first topic. I'll give you the premise. Does the league matter anymore? Is Tottenham and Arsenal good enough to just turn on the switch? With Arsenal, it's been like growing pains for their fan base and for their team. And beating Real Madrid was a growing experience. But are they a seasoned team, having that experience of just, okay, we're just going to coast and get draws these last 2 league games, and then we'll just turn on the PSG. And if you've been looking at Twitter and all these other Arsenal YouTube content creators, except for maybe Lee Gunner, all of them have Arsenal penciled in the final. Some of them have them winning it. And I'm like, damn, you got to play the games. On the Spurs end, right, we clearly know the teams put all their energy and eggs on the Europa League. But if we don't take these league games seriously, does it affect the form going into this game? Can we afford to say, hey, we're just going to snap our fingers? Are we that good enough? That is the $1 million question. And I would go to Dan. Does the league matter in regards to form or momentum going into these European games?
No, not to me. It really doesn't. Right. And I think Nottingham Forest just proved that one, because we came out of a game where for once Ange actually did change the tactics and get them right in the second half when we needed to. They actually give it like they actually grew a pair, actually fought like a bunch of men in there, and they got what they wanted. And then we went straight back, played Nottingham Forest, and we just looked how we have done all season. So for me, it just proves to me that it's irrelevant really with this momentum thing and every that. I get the momentum, but shouldn't have that European game been enough to start off some sort of a momentum to win the rest of our league games and get into the next game? We came out there, you could see the manager was lost again and the rest of the team didn't give a shit. That's how it looks to me anyway. Whether we finish 17th or 14th is pretty irrelevant to me now. We have screwed this season good and proper. We need that Europa more than ever. On the Arsenal side of it, however, I don't think they're in a much better position, really. The league's done. Liverpool's got it. One more point I think they need and it's done. It's over. It's finished. Why should they care about the league now? They've got that Champions League to focus on. Again, if they can get a momentum working, winning in the league and then winning in there, fine. But we can't do that. We're Tottenham. We can't do it. We haven't done it. We haven't done it all season. Yep. Do I think we can win the Europa? These days, not a lot would surprise me. It's possible. Anything's possible. I just think there's too many Spurs fans out here that are already not even looking at these semi-final games and already looking at a final as if it's Spurs Man U, Spurs Bilbao sort of thing, and not even looking at this game. Don't underestimate people. Don't underestimate things. That's the way you get hurt. And then when it comes to the Arsenal side of it quickly, I mean, I'm just speaking for them because they're not here sort of thing. They always bottle it anyway when it comes to a big game anyway. Okay, they didn't bottle it at Real Madrid. Well done. Yeah, let's see what you do at a final, mate, because you don't seem to win nothing with the 900 million spent. Been very well, so near, yet so far. We've been absolutely shit. No shit, Sherlock. Tell me something I don't know. But really, what sort of position are they in as well? They're at their stage where they need to win something surely as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
It's just a total tip-top different situation sort of thing.
Yeah. Same question, Michael. Can those both teams just snap with their finger, flip the switch and perform in these European games?
I think it's quite ironic, but I think that because we are so far up, up the wrong end with the league, right? I think it kind of just detaches the league from the European competition. And I kind of have a feeling that not only the manager but also the players have a completely different approach towards the league game. Because if you look at it, all young players performed, in my opinion, quite well against Forest, but all the older heads who care more about the trophies rather than just performing and getting into the team, I think they performed quite badly, right? So the way I look at it is, I don't think it's as easy as just flipping a switch, because I believe in momentum to a certain extent. like if you keep losing, then you start, doubting yourself, your self-esteem goes down and all that stuff, right? So in that essence, it can affect you, right? But I think the team is just so far detached from the league right now, right? With how absolutely god awful this season has been, that it kind of, I don't want to say works in our favor, but it kind of like, separates the two competitions completely, right? And I have to echo what Dan said. I always say it, right? When you are a big team, and I really can say it from the perspective, for example, of like Polish teams or Polish national team, even, right? When you play against a big guy, right? When you play against the big team, right? Sometimes it's not really about like even the performance, it's about winning, right? You are a scalp for that team, right? They want to, to defeat you, right? Because for them, it it will be spoken for the next 50 years, right? I can guarantee you that Legia Warsaw winning against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, right? We will talk about it in Polish like football sphere for the next 30 years, right? Because it probably won't happen for the next 30 years, right? But it's something big for us, right? And I think smaller teams look the same way at bigger teams like Spurs, Arsenal, and United and Chelsea and all those other teams, right? I say it every single time when we play against Sheffield United in the Carabao Cup, right? When we play against Borough in the FA Cup, right? When we play against Tamworth, when we play against this, that, and the other team, right? I always say that you have to be careful, right? Because as much as yes, you most likely are better than them, right? In every single like part of the football game, right? Every single part, right? Data analysis, training, like training facilities, the quality of the equipment, everything, right? You are better at everything than them, right? What you can do is just disregard how they approach the game, right? Because I always say this: when you play against the smaller teams, right? If you go to their ground and you slap two past them in first 20 minutes, the whole atmosphere just dies, right? And the crowd stops believing and all that stuff, right? But the longer they are in the game, the more belief there is in the crowd, right? And the more they are going to try to push their team onwards, right? But then you end up losing 1-0 to Sheffield United in the cup, 1-0 to Middlesbrough in the cup, right? 3-0 to Dynamo Zagreb in the Europa League, right? Because you don't think highly of the opposition, right? And for them, this is everything. This game is everything for them, right? So I always want to say this. And with Arsenal, quickly, I know I'm talking long, but quickly with Arsenal, right? I mean it in the most like respectful way. But if you are an Arsenal fan, right, and you like disrespect the competition in the European Cup, right? Get your head checked, right? Because you guys, you have no heritage in Europe, right? So please be humble about it, because until you get the heritage, and I'm not saying you can't win the Champions League, right? Because I think you can win the Champions League this season, right? You definitely can, and I would say that you are one of the stronger teams in the competition still. Like there are 4 teams, so I guess all 4 teams are strong, right? You can win the competition, but don't take it as granted because you are going to get slapped, right? That's the level where you, as a team who hasn't won the competition yet, you need to be a bit humble about it, right? You need to acknowledge that, and maybe not PSG, but definitely Inter and Barca, who are on the other side, right? Respect them, like treat them with the respect they deserve, right? Because they won the competition multiple times. They know what it takes, right? All those buzzwords, you don't, right? So keep it humble. And again, I'm not saying you can't win it, right? But you guys have to prove it, and you don't prove it by writing off the opposition and just saying you are the best team and you are going to win it easy, right? Because that's when the fate slaps you up, right?
Yeah.
Basically, you beat Real Madrid, well done, and
Yeah.
not the best Real Madrid team ever, but we all know if there's ever a team that can turn it on at any time, it is Real Madrid.
Yeah.
You still ain't won the competition yet.
Yeah. And I will say this. I think for them, in regards to Arsenal, that they have to have a result at home because the first leg is at Arsenal. Because going to Paris, going to PSG, if they don't have the result, it's going to be raucous. Is going to be ruckus, and so I don't think it's a gimme as much as Arsenal fans are saying, and like our fans, you know, it's like without playing Bodo Glit, it's just like we're in. It's either Bilbao or United, and I'm like, we're not the type of team to have that type of talk. I'm not saying not to have confidence with your team, you know what I'm saying, but at least have some respect for your opponent.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, has anyone actually been to Paris on a night out?
No, and I'm not stepping my foot in that city.
I'm telling you one thing, yeah. Paris ain't a nice place when it gets on your case.
Yeah,
Paris is as bad as London. It's just over here, our supporters up London are very, very, very mellow compared to what it's like up there. It's compared to what it's like on the other side.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, France is crazy. When you watch those League One games from say Etienne, Marseille, Lyon, like they got some crazy ultras. PSG got a crazy ultra fan base, so it's
Lyon.
yeah, and Lyon too. They've just rabid, crazy ultra fans, and so it's it's crazy. So then this leads to our next question, and because all ties in together, since all the marbles are in the Europa League, there were reports coming that either if we win the Europa League or we lose the Europa League, Ange is already gone. Thank you. I hope it's true. Someone's probably making a diss video on me because I just said that, so I might be a cunt. But anyway, either win or lose the Europa, Ange is already gone. I'll start with you, Michael. Do you agree with that? And the reason why I do that premise, big up to Sim on We Are Tottenham TV. He was just talking about, does it make sense to get rid of a manager of that just won you the Europa League? He says, I understand that people are using the Manchester United situation with Ten Hag, but he was basically saying that that's a little bit different and that we owe it. So basically, honestly, and like I said, I respect Sim, but waffle in my book, because I'm more of thank you for the trophy. There goes the door. Here's your severance pay. Bye bye. But reports is he's already gone. So do you agree? Especially if he wins it, he should be out the door, Michael.
So I think, right, that he deserves to be sacked no matter the result, right? But firstly, I will start with what I believe in, right? I believe that he deserves to be sacked based on that league performance, no matter what happens in the European League, right? I think we've been such a dreadful team in the league that no manager should be able to survive a season like that, right? Especially not at a club of our stature, right? And as much as we can banter like Spurs for being the big six club without trophies and all that stuff, right? I still think we are big enough of a club where performing in such a shitty way is not acceptable by any standard, right? But I think if he wins the Europa League, right, the club can't really sack him. I think the club are aware of how much on their case the fan base is right now. Like I think this is probably the hardest the fans have went on them, right? The hardest the fans have fought against them, right? The biggest protest, the most leave out chance in the city. Like we are on their case basically, right? We are watching their moves and now, and they really have to be careful about what they do. And in my opinion, if he brings us a trophy, right, which is something that we've been whining about, right, and then you sack him after that, right, it's basically like a PR headshot, right? Like I think that would be a dreadful decision in the eyes of the fan base, right? So I don't think the club can sack him. But if he walks out himself, I think that's the best case scenario ever, right? If he wins the Europa League and walks out, I think that's absolutely the best case scenario. And I'm not ruling it out, right? Because judging from his actions, for me, it looks like he's done with us, basically done with us as a fan base, done with criticism, done with this season, right? I like listen, I can bet you he aged like 6 years in that season, right? Like the amount of stress that this guy has taken, right? And some of it because of his own actions, right? But some of it wasn't really up to him, in my opinion, right? There were some things that were out of his you know out of his doing, right? That he didn't really have that much of an impact on, right? So for me, an absolute best case scenario is we win and he walks out. The worst case scenario is for me he stays somehow, right? I think if he loses the Europa League, he's gone anyways, right? But in the case if he wins, I think him staying is the worst case scenario, right? Because I don't want to survive another season of that dreadful shit that I had to witness this season, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I personally, I would want him gone anyways. But I think the most probable scenario actually is that he's gone after the season, even if he wins. But he will walk out himself. He won't get sacked. They will probably, do a mutual like consensus or whatever, right? I kind of I forgot how it's called, right? But mutual consent or something like that, right? I think it's called, where basically the parties agree to rip up the contract, and they will probably give him like
It's just severance pay.
severance pay, exactly right, but not the whole contract, a smaller amount and all that stuff, right? I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dan, do you agree? Win or lose, he is a goner and just gone already. You believe it?
Yeah, I think he's done and dusted, mate. And personally, I think he's had enough. I can understand why he's had enough, but he's only done it to himself, really. I just don't believe the manager's good enough for the job over here. I don't think he is. I don't think he is a good enough manager for the Premier League. And that's all there is to it, in my opinion. Yeah, okay, some things ain't gone in his favours. You can say having a goalkeeper out, having your two defenders out, everything else, that's going to affect things. Of course it is. But then that's where you've got to adapt. Same that you've got to do in life with everything when it ain't going your way, when you ain't got the right amount of money, or when you ain't got the things that you've got to adapt. You've got to make things happen. You don't just sit back and let it keep on rolling. How do you fix things? How do you make things get better? You focus on what's wrong. You focus on what's bad to make it better, to make you better. He don't do that at Spurs. He just does it one way. Bar one or two games like the other one, it's he's done it to himself. I don't think he knows no other way, really. Well, he proved he can do it another way. I think that was the frustrating thing, but I think that was more to the point of now that I don't think he's desperate to stay at the club. I think he's more desperate to shut people like us and a few others up to basically turn around and see, I always do win on my second season, give it the finger and walk off. Now, people are going to say he won't walk off from 5-10 million contract, whatever it is he's got. I don't think he will either. But I think Levy's in a right hard predicament at the moment as well. So I could see there being already an understanding there. Like, look, I'm going to walk if you pay me 3 million. You won't have to pay me the 5 million. I'm going to walk, sort of thing. Because I don't think he wants to be here either. Yeah, he's had a lot of stick, but what do you expect from a so-called top 6 club that is in 16th place with countless records broken on the negative side, nothing on the positive side. I mean, please, someone do tell me something positive to go about this season. Okay, we got to 2 semi-finals. Yeah, fine. But we still won nothing. Okay, we're in a semi-final, but we still ain't won nothing yet. I'll say this season is positive if we win that Europa. There is a positive side to it. But you can't keep on going on like that in the league. I don't think he's made for it. Go back to Scotland, mate. I think that's his level. Other managers have come over here from smaller leagues and done it. Other managers have come over here from smaller leagues and totally blown it. Other people have come over here from big leagues and done it. Other people have come here from big leagues and blown it as well. I just don't think he's got what it takes for the Premier League, personally.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I think he's had Murray. I think he's had enough as well, and he wants out as well. I can't say I blame him because he has had some shit. It's what do you want people to say? What do you want Spurs fans to do? I mean, what do you call back in a club? Just like, go on, mate. I keep go getting beat 4-1. Keep go getting beat 1-0 all the time. Keep go conceding the same goals every time. I'm going to blindlessly back you all the way and say, come on, let's go. When you can blatantly see it's not working.
Yeah.
I don't think he's done himself no favours, but I wouldn't blame him if he wanted to piss off either.
Yeah. And can you imagine going into next season? You know, people will say, "Oh, Edge, it's charismatic. He has that," but he doesn't with the British media, with the English London media. I mean, he doesn't have that pizzazz. He doesn't have the way to deal with the media. And can you imagine next season going in the first 10 games as him get even more nastier and nastier? Because some of his post-game comments have been ridiculous and have been really condescending to reporters. I understand the reporters can sometimes ask, some stupid questions, but some of these questions were really legit sounding. And I don't know about you. He's saying that we played well, and I'm like, I don't see it. If you call, spotting teams a goal or two playing well and having to come back in the second half and fall short, well, then, mate, you're not good enough for Tottenham, and you're probably not good enough for the Premier League. Hearing rumors, maybe Leeds may be for him because Leeds they're about to move up and they're about to fire their coach. Good luck to Leeds. You can have him, but but yeah, I don't want him. And I'm gonna say this: I do not, and I know he played for us, and like I said, I do want a manager who can bring structure and discipline to our squad. But I'm to the point where, like I said in last week's show, I want a manager. If it's going to be a manager that's going to be here 3 or 4 or 5 years, I want a manager that can coach and plays real well, have a system that plays offensive football and defense, and is adaptable of doing things to get us over the line. Scott Parker does not rock my boat. I mean, is he better than Ange? Yes, but for me, when I remember when he was with Bournemouth, and I think he was with Fulham when they had Sessegnon stuff. He didn't do too well, and so this time I'll start with you, Dan. Scott Parker, does he tickle your fancy in the Spurs?
Do you know, at the moment, I'm just at that point where just give me anyone and I'll just shut up. that is literally the point I'm at. Just give me do I think Scott Parker will take us places? No, I don't. But one thing I think Scott Parker would have the capability of doing is leveling things up a little bit, straightening things up, getting some different tactics in there, getting more of the players playing to how they actually play, because he's played in the Premier League for many years. He understands it a lot more. And no, you wouldn't say he's the most experienced manager out there, hasn't succeeded in doing anything at a big club, whatever, and stuff like doing that, really. I thought he was a respectable player when he played. I didn't think he was bad at all. I actually liked him when he was at Spurs. I think he's got more of a Premier League football brain than Ange has. I don't see him doing any worse. Now, would he be one of the ones that I'd go and put on my list that I would like? No. But at the moment, do you know what? fuck off and I'll give my wife a call and she can do the job. She probably understands offside better than Ange these days. So I just want the fella gone. I just want this pain out. And you know what? If Scott Parker's got to be the one, then let Scott Parker be it. It ain't gonna be no worse than Ange. It's not. And I think a few people used to need to see that if it was not for three total crap teams, one of them probably going to be the worst team the Premier League has ever seen. If they lose another two, I think it is, they're worse than Derby in it or something like that, something along them lines. But either way, one of the worst teams the Premier League's ever seen. If it weren't for how poor they were, we'd be going down. There's no ifs or buts about it. The only thing that has really kept us in that league is the fact that the others are that crap. Do I want Parker? No, he would not be on my list. But again, get that clown out and I'll take Parker for the season and just see how it goes and ride it because it ain't going to be any worse than this.
Yeah. So if I can, right, I personally think that, or let me put it differently, I actually want someone with a bit of a pedigree, and I know it sounds a bit maybe like, know your place, after Ange we take anyone or whatever, right? I'm just not sure whether a manager without like some sort of a pedigree will unite this fan base enough. I think if we go for a guy like Marco Silva, let's call it, right? I think there are going to be fans that will get on his case from the get-go, like, because after Ange they expect a bit more. They expect the club to do like something better, right? Additionally, I have to say that I'm actually not the biggest fan of Iraola appointment after I gave it a bit of a thought, because I think it's not the same football, but it's kind of similar in terms of intensity and the way he wants to press and all that stuff. And I just think this team is not suited for that. And I have an issue with managers like Frank because of what I said, right? I totally respect what Thomas Frank has done with Brentford. I think he's a really good manager. He understands the game well. He rotates with formations. He adapts towards the opposition and all that stuff, right? I just don't think there is enough like zazz about him, right? There isn't enough like, sorry to use the saying, but big dick energy, right? I want a manager to come in with a bit of like big dick energy and to have a solid system that's also backed with success, right? So for me, like the Glasner, for example, for me is a guy that has a solid system that I think suits the players, and he also won the Europa League and the German Cup, right? The DFB Pokal. So yes. I look at him, right? Because I don't want to go unrealistic, right? I'm not saying we should go for Ancelotti after he gets sacked for Real Madrid. I know our place, right? But I also don't want to go too far down. So Scott Parker is the same like level for me, right? I respect Scott Parker for what he did with Burnley, right? To concede 15 goals in 42 games or 44 games in Championship, right? In Championship, where you play every 3 days for the entire season, right? That's mad. That's an absolutely unbelievable achievement, right? Yeah. But he has no pedigree behind him, right? Like advancing to Premier League with Burnley is a given pretty much. They've done it 4 times in a row. Each time they gone down, they went back up straight. They went straight back up, right? So I'm just not convinced by Scott Parker. I want a bit more, and I know it's maybe it's a bit pretentious for me to demand more from the club. I just think it will do good for the club, right? Like the Stuttgart manager would be enough for me, right? Because bringing Stuttgart from relegation to Champions League previous season, right? For me, that's enough of a here. You have a proof of what I can do, right?
I got a question for you, Michael.
Yeah,
I got a question for you. I have a saying you don't ever go back to your ex. And trust me,
Mm-mm.
I
I don't want Pochettino.
I don't want to go back to my ex. But Daniel Levy has a trump card. And if he could somehow buy out the United States Federation, there's been reports today, since you're talking about managers, Pochettino is the leading candidate to return to Tottenham if Postecoglou leaves. Daniel Levy considers him to be the first choice, and sources confirm that the Argentine coach wants to return home. The relationship between the two parties still remains strong. Now, it's going to be very, very hard. It's not that easy to, first of all, it's really going to look bad. You may not care, but it's really going to look bad because the United States Federation, as you guys, some of you know, the World Cup is going to be in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. They're rolling all the marbles on a Poch-led United States team. I think the report is a little bit bullshit because, yes, the desire to come back to Spurs, but we may have to wait. But the question goes back to, would you want that ex-girlfriend back? Yes, in comparison to Ange, but to build. Levy knows how much his fan base loves Poch. And so that's the question I throw out. Who's to go at it first?
Look, I called this out how many months ago? Like I said before the show, the Levy has got one trick in his hand. At the moment, he's in probably one of the biggest predicaments he's been in the way that we are in the league and the way a lot of fans are more on his case now than they ever have been. And there's a lot of Ange out, but still there's a very high majority of Ange in. If he goes and gets rid of Ange, or even if he walks, there's going to be a lot more that even turn on Levy for it. I called this out 9 months ago, 8 months, something like that, and it was on here. He's got that trick of Poch. Now, if everyone goes off key because we don't win Europa and we've done shit in the league and Ange has been sacked, not that we care that Ange has been sacked, but you're going to have all the Ange lovers come over to this side and switch on Daniel Levy for different reasons. And then next thing you know, he turns around and goes, there's Pochettino. That's it. You're going to have 75, 80% of the fan base say, thank you, Mr. Levy, and walk straight back over and keep their mouth shut. Would I take Poch back? Yes. I'm at that point now where I've always been one that agrees with no, don't go back on it. But you know what? Again, I just want Ange out that much that, like I just said, I'd accept Scott Parker for fuck's sake. So of course I'm going to accept Ange back. Ange, sorry. Of course I'm going to accept Poch. And do you know what? The more I think about it, he's got a bit more experience as a manager.
Yeah.
I don't actually think he'd done a bad job at Chelsea because by the end of the season, he actually had it ticking there.
Exactly.
And that's when they dropped him. He ain't going to do no worse than Ange. And I feel, if I'm going to be honest, I feel if Poch was the manager that came back, I think even a lot of people who would say they wouldn't want him back would also have a little smile on the face and even possibly a bit of passion for the club again.
Can you
Call it
imagine?
hope. Call it a clutch of straws, call it hope, call it whatever you want. But I think that is about the only trick that Levy can pull off to get a significant amount of people off his back. And don't be surprised if out of nowhere, Levy slams 10 million on the table and says, there's your contract bought out. I need you. He's just going to give a 400 million to Ange. Yeah, just don't be gobsmacked if it happens. I called it about 8 or 9 months ago on here that is still a card he's got, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Mike,
so
would you take him back?
I'm torn on it, right? Because we have this saying in Polish that basically goes like, you don't step twice into the same river. You know, you can translate it whichever way you want, right? Or like translate the meaning of it, right? Whichever way you want. But basically, it's like, I understand every single argument you boys made, and I agree with them, right? I agree that it's the last ace up the sleeve for Levy, right? This is the last, like, holding onto, the fan passion and all that stuff, right? I agree that Poch will definitely do better than Ange. I agree that when push comes to shove, Levy will spend the money and will buy him out. I'm just skeptical whether this is a good time and place to have Pochettino back, right? Because I think people have really fond memories of him. Like, people remember the good times, and I just have a feeling that we might we might not see that version of Pochettino that we remember, right? And many people will be let down by it because people feel like, no, this has been the shittiest season, and Poch will come back and he will take us straight back to the top, right? Some people will think like that, right? I'm not saying everyone. Like, logical fans will know that if you finish the season in 16th, you don't go from 16th to challenging for the league, right? That's not how it works. But there will be a lot of people who will think, like, we have to go straight back up. And I'm just a bit skeptical. Also, I'm not sure about the whole Pochettino Levy situation. I feel like Pochettino would rather come back when the club is more stable. I don't think he wants to spend another 2 years rebuilding the squad like he did at the beginning of his first tenure, right? So again, I also agree with Dan, right? If he came back, I would have a smile on my face. I would have the belief back, right? Like, he would be the positive thing to bring back the passion towards the club, right? From the logical point of view and tactical point of view, I'm not sure whether that's the best idea, right? I think we need a bit of a fresh approach, and I think we need. I just think we need someone else, right? So I would prefer that it was someone else other than Poch, but I'm not super against it. Like, if you understand what I mean, right?
Yeah. I'm to the point of, like Dan, I'll take a French fry over Ange. To that point, with Poch is tricky because I know how he didn't get supported by the regime the first time, and it's kind of like. But then again, a part of me wants me. I want him around the young players because I'm gonna be honest with you. Brennan Johnson is not going anywhere. Um, who else do we have? Solanke. We're stuck with some bad contracts. Tell we can still get an escape. Please do not sign Tell. There's a couple players that it's gonna be kind of hard to get rid of, but I feel Poch could get more of a tune, and then this will make Ian happy. Well, the fan base happy. I think with Gray, having Poch here would be a dream scenario for him, Bergvall, Donnelly, Lancashire, Mikey Moore. Having Poch here would be really, really awesome. And so it would be better in regards of output that we have. But then again, a part of me wants to see, and like I said, I want a coach. I want someone who comes in who can coach the youth because apparently we're nursery FC and we got all these young players, right? We're not going to pay for some, other players. So for me, with Poch coming back, there has to be more context coming in. If he's like the only choice, yes, I'm going to take Poch back. If the Enoch and the owners weren't here, yes, I agree with Dan. That second half of January of last year, Chelsea had the third most points, and they were just like his first season. He starts slow, but he starts off hot. Right now, I don't see any difference with Maresca other than they're going reverse. Right, they started hot, and now they look, in my opinion, a little bit much worse than last season at this point. So I think Poch can still coach at a top level. It just stepping into two rivers, rivers twice. I mean, not two rivers, but
with what you're saying there, Murray, that's where I don't think Scott Parker would be the worst thing we could ever bring in here either, because I think he'd actually work with the younger players very well, and we do have a significantly younger team now. I think he'd actually a player. I think he'd actually be a manager, because it's shown before that he can actually work around younger players as such. In that aspect, like I said, he's not on my list, whatever, and that, but I don't think he would be a bad pick if you're going to focus on a manager that has basically got to focus on what he has got, basically, that isn't going to get much money, if that's the way it's going to be. We don't know how it's going to work out. So, again, would he really be the worst call for that? Because I believe he's got more than enough ability to work around the younger players. I've seen him do it.
Well, maybe he has something to prove too. I mean, like you have, I'll use Marcus Silva as an example. He's been a candidate. Silva, I didn't think he was great at Everton, and was he somewhere else before that?
Watford and
Yeah.
Hull City, I think.
Yeah.
But now, it took his third, fourth chance, and now you're seeing like, okay, maybe, Parker has something to prove. Maybe he will get an offensive coaches, right? His team, in regards to like, hey, we're gonna play good defense, but we're also going to because Dan, our fan base, right, Michael? You know our fan base. They want us to attack forward. It drove them crazy with Conte. I don't know if we were streaming together during the Conte years, but I was Conte in. As long as you have his system in, because the way Inter play, and you still see the remnants of Conte, it's beautiful. I don't get it, but also I'm a type. I want to see us cross the line. I want to see teams cross the line. I really like Barcelona. I like Barcelona. Like I respect what they do. What Inter did to them in 2010, and winning. I think they won the treble that year. Yeah, they did.
That was one reason and one reason only. That was Jose Mourinho.
Yeah, Jose Mourinho. But the way they did it, it was impressive. It was mighty impressive, and they won, and they won. And so for me, like I want to have a coach that coaches the players and does what it takes to win week in and win out. Because I want to win trophies with a plural S. I want us to be solid. I want us to be a really, really good team. And to do that, especially with, like, Dan, I was saying, with the youth, we need someone that could coach these players. Because you already heard from the statement from Levy, basically saying we're not going shopping. And I'm including the sale of Romero. We're not.
Don't bet on it. Yeah, we all know Levy's full of shit, no matter what. Yeah, but again, let alone a businessman, does a person who's even got common sense basically go onto the TV and say, "I've got a lot of money in my pocket and we're going to spend it"?
Yeah,
of course he fucking don't. If he did, it'd be an even bigger prick than he is already.
Yeah.
Of course he's going to say we got lack of money. He's not going to say we've got 200 million to spend. There you go. And then someone wants 50 million for a player, but because they know you've got 200, they now want 70 million for a player, like everyone used to do to Man U, like everyone does to PSG, like they used to do to Real Madrid and Barcelona and that. But are we going to go out? Did anyone think we was going to go and spend what 450 million with Ange?
No. That's the worst money spent.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's going to go out and load it up or nothing and that, but
by the way, I actually think that some of the player acquisitions under Ange weren't that bad, but it's just about like I honestly I try to look at the current squad without the context of Ange, right? When I watch them play now, because like I'm 99.9% sure Ange won't be here next season, right? So now when I'm watching us, I try to look at what the players show me not in the system. Like, I'm watching their first touches, I'm watching the passing, I'm watching, the positioning, but not like positioning in terms of like, in tactical, but the way they, look around themselves. I'm just watching players for what they are as footballers, not as like cogs in the machine. Cogs, not cogs, right? But yeah, and I think that this squad isn't as bad. Obviously, it isn't as bad as it is showing in the league right now, right? And I think that some of the acquisitions weren't bad. It's just that, unfortunately, that whole like 400 and something millions is tainted by fucking two Timo Werner loans and Solanke and loaning Matistel when we don't need him and just couple stupid, absolutely woeful decisions, right, along the way, which are not explainable for me, right? Because if you look at like Vicario, Van de Ven, Bergval, Vuskovic, I watched Vuskovic live and I keep tabs on him in the Belgian league, right? So like when I look at those guys, Madison, right? I actually think those were good buys and we bought good footballers, right? I just think the system is so absolutely dire that these players get dragged down to the depths of hell because of how naive this system is, right? And how good of a job it does of exposing every single weakness they have. that's just ridiculous for me, right? How good this system is at exposing the weaknesses of the players, right? Exposing the weakness of Sporo defending, of Madison, not working hard enough, of the Son not being a good winger, right? Solanke not being a good false nine, and I can go on and on and on and on and on, right? With this fucking system. It's just ridiculous how good it is at exposing how these players do not perform in the roles it wants them to, right? And by the way, I've seen plenty of people mentioning Xavi, right? The Xavi from Barcelona, right? I would take him in a heartbeat. I think he works
Yep.
well with the youth. I
As
think.
Paratici comes with him because he cannot work well with.
Oh
He's
yeah. Like by the
Lang.
way, I personally think, right, and this might be a bit of a copium, right? But I think we appointed Vinay, right, the Arsenal guy.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if if he and Levy completely restructured the whole football, like the whole football side of the club. I think they will fire Ange, or like they will settle with Ange. But I wouldn't be surprised if Scott Mann and Lange also went, right? I think they will restructure this whole thing, right? And under a new like CEO and director of football, if we do this well, Xavi, I think with the squad that we have, I think he could do some
let me,
nice things, right? I'm not saying he is going to win the league and win this and that and all that stuff, right?
let me play advocate, Michael.
Yeah, go for it.
Because for me, I love honesty. That's what I love about Conte, what I love about Jose, and even Poch.
Yeah.
Xavi, I remember at Barcelona,
Yeah,
was
he's lying.
very honest. Very, very honest. How would you think he would handle being under Levy and some of these press conferences? Because some people, not me, were mad when Poch was very honest. Xavi, from what I've seen in the past, was very honest. I mean, can you see that working at Tottenham? Like Xavi's personality? Because he will coach
Okay.
the players, but
Murray,
I mean, I
That's
love
like-
honesty.
that's like saying, can any manager who's actually got his own personality work with Levy?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I can see him like, okay, this guy talks too much. Bye bye, Xavi. Because like when you have standards, the thing is, it was so tough. Like, we want to bring winners in, and so when winners come in, they come in with standards, right? And so when they see from top to bottom a mentality of no ambition and losing, it must be tough. Like for Conte, I know he must have his hand over his mouth at times. He want and he get clues. If I I don't want to say something. Even Joe say if I tell the truth. Like Harry Kane, he steps day one in Bayern and he says in the interview, "Oh, I do like on winning culture. Like I like you can tell the difference." So Xavi coming in, he's gonna be like Conte, like this needs to change, this needs to change, that needs to change, this needs to change because he was surrounded by La Masia, the academy, Barcelona. Like when you're a winner and you're surrounded by that, it's tough to come into Tottenham and see, meh.
It's tough to say anyone coming into Spurs and picking up anything from this heap of shit from what's happened this year. But any manager that does it is going to have the capability of working with what he's got. And that is one thing Ange definitely proved this year. He cannot play with the cards he's got when it really matters. We need a manager in here who can just play with the cards he's got. Simple as that. And yeah, he's going to have to shut up and just get on with it because it's who Levy is. It's what Levy is. It's how he works. Like it or lump it, it is what it is. Deal with it. We can't change that here. Yeah. So the manager we need is going to have to be one that can just play with the cards he's got, that can adapt to the situation he's got. Not just have his mindset in one way and then still want all these players to play his way, whatever else, and still won't change his way because he hasn't got all the players he needs to do it. If you want to win things, or you want to get somewhere in the league at least, you've got to try and win every bloody game. But we're at that point now where, even if we win every game, I think we finish about 14th anyway now.
Yeah.
So, but there were so many times where people used injuries as excuses, whereas at one stage you could say it was a reason. Yeah, injuries can be a reason for me, but then there's that thin line between reasons and excuses, and I think the injuries became excuses. And the reason I say that, anyone losing their main two, which was his fault anyway, and the goalkeeper, whatever else, that's going to affect any big team, any team in the world. No two ways about it. But did he adapt his ways to it? Did he then bring us back with a DM to give the let's say second class ones like a bit of help and whatever else? No, he just kept it the same way, gung ho, go forward, kept getting us out court at the same time. We need a man who can adapt and play with the cards he's got. Yeah. We need a normal manager, in my opinion.
Exactly. Dan, that's exactly what I said when we were struggling. Like we've been struggling the whole season, right? But especially like December and January time, right? That's when I completely like lost all faith that I had left, right? But the reason was, right, I've always said that injuries, as you said, can and will affect the way your team performs, right? There isn't a team in the world that doesn't get affected by injuries, right? Every single injury, every single player missing is going to affect the way you play, right? Because you even if it's a substitution player, you cannot take off the main player, right? It always affects the way you play and the way you perceive the game, right? But when it became excuses, right? When we lost to Leicester at home, when we drew with Wolves that were 19th but at the time when we played them, right? When we are getting slapped up every single day, right? And this manager kept refusing to change the way he plays, right? And kept putting Gray and Dragusin at halfway line, asking them to run back, right? And kept exposing the fullbacks, right? And we are getting ripped up. And people were saying it's because of the injuries. That's when I completely lost it, right? Because it's not injuries. A good manager in a situation like this, right? In a situation where you have Gray and Dragusin at the back, right? A 19-year-old central midfielder, apparently, that's playing center back, right? And Dragusin, who is slow as fuck, right? But he's a good defender in the box, right? And you put them on the halfway line, it's not injuries. It's you, mate, right? It's your fault. It's your issue, right? It's not because of the injuries, right? Because when we played with a magic fuck ton of injuries, and like 4 players with diarrhea or something, right? And we played against Newcastle at home that were fully fit and on the good run, right? And we lost to 1. I was like, fair enough. Like there comes a point where you literally can't do anything, right? That's the game where even Austin played because Forster got an injury or something, right? And we had to use our third keeper. We had to use like a complete makeshift backline. I'm pretty sure Spence played. Pretty sure Spence played as a center back in that game, right? When you are that deep in the shitter, I'm not putting the blame on the manager, no matter what he does, right? But there were games in that whole stretch from after City, after we beat City 4-0 up until now, pretty much. There were plenty of games where I think if he was a good manager and if he actually cared about the well-being of the team and if he actually cared about winning, he would have adapted differently and performed differently, and we would have gotten results, right? Even with the injuries that we had. So that's why I'm out, right? That from that point on, right? Because I cannot accept a manager who cares more about his philosophy and bullshit, right, rather than the team winning, right? Your job is to win, right? Your job is to win as many matches as you can, right, given the circumstances. And as I said, I understand you losing to Arsenal away 2-1 with injuries, right? I understand losing to Newcastle at home 2-1 with injuries, right? I can even, as much as I think it's a disgrace to concede 6 at home, I understand losing to Liverpool when they were in such pump and we had 11 first team injuries or whatever, right? I can understand that, but losing to Leicester at home, Ipswich at home, drawing with Wolves, getting slapped 3 past by Everton, who have scored 12 goals by the time we played them, right, in the middle of the season. That's not acceptable for me, no matter how many injuries you have.
Yeah. So the last subject I want to get to today is another big issue. Romero and the others gone, and I put others gone. To be honest, and I'm being real honest, and Stell said this earlier in the show. It's the same exact thought I had. There's not a player on this squad. If I want to get a new kit, that will have their name on the back. It's probably the first time ever because coming in, I wanted Jermaine Defoe, Gareth Bale, um, Erickson, Sonny, of course, Kane, of course, Toby. Um, Romero was supposed to get, never really got, but now it's too late. He's pretty much gone. And some of you guys know I was spent some time in Argentina a couple weeks ago, and just got some 4-on-1. For me, I would like to see a lot of players go. I think Kulu's given a lot of hidden messages. I think he's gone. In my book, Bentancur apparently could be gone. Um, my only thing is, if we win the Europa League, it will help in the sense of maybe talking to Eric to Gagey in regards to okay, we have Europe. If we don't have that, I don't really think we have enough to sway a play like that. Let alone depending on who's also going for him. But yeah, I just want to get your opinions. For me, I said it. I'll say it again. I think a divorce needs to happen with Romero. I've criticized him a couple of the years, but not to the extent because I know I've seen him at his best. But of course at
So shouldn't you criticise him more then?
No. I've had. There's been some moments I've had this year. I don't really have any excuse other than like this divorce needs to happen. I think he's checked out, and for me, I've called out players who've checked out. Even Kane, when when Nuno was here, I got hard on him, and so I'm gonna get hard on Romero in that it's not the jump on high that you could show up in Frankfurt, but um, against Forest, you were shit. Plain simple. You were
know what?
absolute shit. And so for me, it's just I still have to root for him in one context, and one episode I will explain how my dad raised me to support, Argentina since I was young. There's a story behind that, but for me now, for for the love of Spurs, I'm like, dude, you just it's time for you to go. You need to go. I also feel that same way, but in a different way for Sonny. I'm just like, bro, that love I have for you is it's shrinking in the sense of like like I've criticized you enough. I think it's time for you to go. You know what I'm saying? And so for Romero, Kulu, Basuma, they all need to go. But starting number one, Romero has to go. His play and his attitude about the club, I love the club more than the player. He needs to go.
You know what? With everything you just said there, I'll go with most of it, yeah. But yeah, Harry Kane got some stick. But do you know what? Harry Kane had every right to do that as far as I'm concerned. And like I've said there before, Harry Kane should have never, ever, ever stepped foot on a Spurs pitch again when he knew Man City was willing to put in the money for him. He'd already give us everything he could possibly give us and some. And he did give us more as well. And I don't think nobody would have had, it would have been almost an audacity for people to switch on him, for him to actually have an ambition in his life, to actually want to go out and win something instead of staying at a club that just never wins nothing because it just don't want to go nowhere. Which ain't the fans' fault, it ain't our fault. But could anyone really have blamed Harry Kane if he'd have done that with Man City? For me, that is the biggest mistake Kane ever made, stepping on a Spurs pitch ever again when Man City was interested in him. Whereas Romero, he's got no right to have that attitude. I mean, for me, the more and more I see of him, I still think he's one of the most overrated players we've had at this club. On his night, he is an extremely good defender. Even world-class games. But just because you've had a world-class game, for me, that don't make you a world-class player. A world-class player is someone who performs consistently over and over and over again.
Yep.
Ronaldo, Messi, let's go back to Nesta, let's go back to Del Piero, let's go back to Roberto Baggio. Do you want me to list to go on like with Figo, R9? That is a world-class player, yeah?
No.
You want to talk about a world-class defender? Now let's go talk about Lilian Thuram, yeah?
Oh yeah,
Christian Romero to me is a minor compared to that.
definitely.
He's not world exactly. He is not world class. That is what I think people have a big call it us older lot because I'm already older lot now in my 40.
Same here.
I look at world class now and I laugh at it. I genuinely laugh at a majority of it because I think that ain't world class.
Same here.
Go and take that back 20, 25 years. That wouldn't have even called some of their boots. If
I've had some
like example, Batistuta, yeah.
Oh, please don't let me cream on myself. I'm getting excited.
One of my favorite all-time strikers, yeah. The point I'm making is even back then he was not even considered a world-class striker because there was better, yeah.
Oh yeah.
You go and bring him now, he would be a god.
Mario around that time. You even had stop. Oh gosh,
you had Inzaghi, you had Shevchenko, you had loads.
Yeah, you had
even back in his day
from Bulgaria.
Yeah, my point is Hagi, Chicha Hagi.
That's
the list goes on. That is why I laugh these days at world class, what people call a world class player. Okay, they might be a world class player to the standards of these days, but that's where for me standards of football has dropped so fucking low now that it is comical compared to what it was. A lot of players that get called world class now, for me, don't even get to lace the boots of some of the players that I've seen play, and that I'm glad I watched play in that generation. Yeah, but he is a very, very good defender, but he just does not perform regular, and he has not done since he has been at Spurs. And half the time he's injured as well, and then all of a sudden he's perfectly fit to play for Argentina. Conveniently, nearly every bloody time this has happened. I don't think his head's with us anymore. I think he thinks he's bigger than the club, the way he just struts around in it. And personally, I want him gone. And I don't think we will miss him that much as long as we go and just get a stable, steady defender. I've had this argument with a lot of people. I know a lot of it is opinion. I'll say what I said on here and what I said on Savas on mine the other night. I would take Milenkovic over Romero 10 times all day over. And if you said this to me 3 or 4 years ago, I said exactly the same on Savas' channel when I first started doing YouTubing over a year and a half ago. Yeah, I like Romero, but I'd take Milenkovic from Fiorentina over him all day long. And everybody laughed. Fine, each to their own. Yeah, well, I know who I would rather have. I know who is a more stable, consistent, better player. For me, Romero, he's done the dusty. Get rid of him. Let him go. If we get a 40 million offer for him, snatch it up. I do not think he is as great as people make out.
Sunday, I was on the show. Sava posted a question, and I agreed. I know Stell was like, "Oh wow, yeah," but I agree. I have to be honest. I said I would rather have Murillo and Milenkovic over Romero and VDV. Stefan on the show, because we're going back and forth. I have a very strict, world class like policy. I'm very, very, very strict. Like there's some place I edge. Like for me, like world class Premier League for club, Van Dijk for the Netherlands, and that's how I look at Romero. For Argentina, yep, you do your thing, but for your club, you've been a disappointment. I'll go to Michael, but I will say this: I got so excited when you mentioned Batistuta. For people who don't know, like for me, my GOAT is Messi, but my favorite player growing up is Batistuta, like number one. And for me, I call it world class because what he did with Florentina and 2 Copa America for Argentina early in his career, and then he won with Roma, the Serie A, and Crespo. I love.
And he couldn't even get into the Argentina most of the time because the manager didn't like him.
Yeah, no, he was able to play because he's second. He's actually second all-time scorer. Messi passed him, but
he went through a long stage where he missed a lot of games where they really could have played him, where they didn't play him, and they played other Argentinian players because the manager of Argentina did not actually like Batistuta. They had an issue with each other.
Yeah, that was what year? But
what was his name? He was at Parma, and then he went. He also went Chelsea and back to Inter.
I'm trying to remember the manager because
not the manager, the player, the Argentinian player, attacker. I can't remember his bloody name now. I can't remember his bloody name.
Talk about Crespo. Crespo played for Parma. Crespo is one of my favorite, and they both played together with Riquelme, another favorite one of mine. Man, I could talk about Argentina football all night, but yeah, no. So I grew up with players that had standards. Hagi, which is one of my favorite players, because he broke my heart. That's how I became to like him, because Romania in the '94 World Cup, he put on a performance like it was just. So back then, I know Bergkamp. Like these are players for club and country. Club and country shine, and you don't have to. You have one. Okay, for country, but for club, and then there are ones who will shine for their club, but for their country, yes. I always have a hard time pronouncing his name,
Stoichkov.
Yeah, legend.
Christoph Stoichkov, yeah.
Legend.
By the way, 2 things, right? First thing is I better not say who my favorite player was when I was young, because I think I might get a bit of a stick from the chat.
I'll just say it. Just say it how it is. One of my favorite all-time players, and I'll admit it, is Patrick Vieira. Same as it is with Roy Keane.
Mine was
I love, and Patrick Vieira went into so.
Mine was Thierry Henry.
No, Thierry Henry, man, was good. I was a Spurs fan.
Yeah, I got to be honest when I was like, as you put it nicely, Mari, creaming my pants over Thierry Henry. I got to be honest, I didn't even know what Tottenham was at that time, right? We didn't get Premier League in Poland, right, on the TV, so I was just watching Thierry Henry ripping it up from like YouTube highlights or something stupid like that, right? And he was my favorite player at the time, but. Yeah, I got to say. Also, I've got one thing to pick with you, Mari, with your world-class definition of a player, right? Because if I remember correctly, you say that they have to perform for the club, country, and what were your things? Like they have to perform for the club.
The country. I said they have to. For me, and that's why I had to. Let me say this: I created a new category, like legends, because since everybody calls everybody world class, so I, it's watered down. But for me, I need that player to excel for the club, but also excel for their country. For me to say, but that's just me. That's my
But my one issue is that there are some players, like obviously they don't choose which country they are born in, so they kind of can fulfill the country requirement, right? Like Lewandowski with Poland, right? We are never winning the World Cup or Euros, right? So like in that aspect, Lewandowski can't.
But he's performed well.
Mate, he's our top goal scorer and probably will be forever, right?
Like Haji from Romania, like
even if Haaland for Norway, probably he won't win anything with Norway, right?
You see Lewandowski, Norway, I think he's one that you could actually put back 25 years and he would stand up with the big boys. He's a striker who I personally think you can call still modern world class, getting a bit slower, whatever else. But he is a player that you could put back with Batistuta and everybody else and all that, and would stand up next to him. I think he's that good.
He's breaking ridiculous records, Lewandowski, right? Obviously not Messi and Ronaldo level, right? But these two are aliens. But he's, as far as I know, like in the Messi and Ronaldo era, he's the third one in terms of total goals scored after them, right? So it's Messi, Ronaldo, Messi, and then it's Lewandowski. He has something like over 500 or goals. I think he's closing on 600, if I remember correctly. Sorry, again, Mari?
I think Suarez is up there too. Louis
but Lewandowski is definitely third, right? I know that for a fact. Also, he smashed Suarez goal scoring record, right? Over 2 seasons he's been at Barca. I think he's at more goals now than Suarez was after his first 2 seasons. And he's like 37, right? And all that stuff. I know it's a different point in career, right? But my point, like he beat the Gerd Müller record in Bundesliga, right? All-time Bundesliga, top goal scorers and all that stuff, right? Like he's a ridiculous player for me. And as you said, Dan, I think he's one of the few from modern era where you could put them in a 2000s game and he would be the world class player he is now.
Yes,
right? He wouldn't be as good as he is right now compared to the rest, right? Because there were obviously
I disagree. No, Mike, I disagree. I think he'd be up there on the same levels of Shevchenko and that.
But there were more strikers of his level, right? So he wouldn't be like because he's like Kane and Haaland are probably, and Isaac maybe now. Like no, Isaac he still has to do more for me to be.
Oh yeah, Isaac has to do more.
Yeah, but like Lewandowski, Kane, and Haaland are probably the 3 strikers that everyone would say are the best ones right now. And after them, there isn't really like Lautaro Martinez. I think he's really good, right? Isaac is really good. Like, but it's not the same as in 2000s, right? And listen, I can't really talk about 2000s. I was born in 97, right? So I was like 5 years old when Ronaldo was slapping it up, right? The Brazilian Ronaldo and all the other guys, right? But from what I hear from guys older than me, like I think there is very few players now who would get into those teams. Like Van Dijk for me is a player who could perform like 20 years ago, right? Rodri maybe is a player who could perform 20 years ago. Modric, like those type of guys, right? But there are far and few in between, and they are all basically over 30 now. If you notice, right? There aren't many like between 20 and 30 who you look at them and you say, yeah, you could play 20 years ago, right? Like who is there between 20 and 30? Like I don't even want to say Yamal, right? Because Yamal is an unbelievable talent, right? But 20 years ago, like imagine an 18-year-old doing what he's doing now 20 years ago. There is like a high kick to the knee flying at him, right? And the ref is giving a yellow. Yeah, it's a different ball game 20 years ago, right? So
like, who's this twig who's sticking like Yeah, wipe them out. And yeah,
Yeah,
it would-
we'll teach you a thing or two.
that's why I appreciate the guys like Haji just dribbling around these guys who are trying to kill him. Maradona, my dad's goat. Like they try to kill like these players, and that's why I get for me. Batistuta can play in any era because he had to go up against center forwards that will elbow him. It's just like there were things that they would do to him, and that's when I speak to someone who's young and they're like, "Oh, well, he only scored 22 goals or 23." I said 18 to 23 goals for that season is like 40 to 45 now, because the rules of the game change and whatsoever. These guys, Van Basten, Stuta, Crespo, there's some players who will be good in any era. I mean, Riquelme, imagine running through the midfield now and the fouls that they call. Oh, if you thought he was killing the midfield now, back then, can you imagine now? Salas and Zamorano for Chile, Marcelo Salas and Zamorano. Amazing. The 90s had amazing forwards and strikers. Are just amazing. I mean, you could
The
go.
thing is, Mari, when you start going on like this is when it gets a lot of people. I mean, we're not even talking about bloody Spurs anymore, yeah. This is when you just get a lot of people who are in their mid-30s, 40s, whatever, even 50s, and that just totally turn their back on modern day football and just look at what it was to what it is now. I mean, for me, football is pretty shit compared to what it was 20, 25 years ago. The standard of player has gone down. The lack of flair, the lack of aggression in it. I mean, do you know what? I think I see more aggression in no messing about in the female games than I do the male games. It's depressing in its own way. Even the tactics in the football, I find dry lunch these days. I prefer watching Serie A than I do to Premier League most of the time because I think Premier League is dry lunch this season as well. I think this year football as in whole has been pretty terrible, bar one or two teams maybe. Or maybe 3 or 4 teams I can bring up. I mean, Inter have been solid this year and been really good to watch. Napoli haven't been too sad either. I mean, Roma over their past 18, 19 games, they have been. That's what happens when you get rid of the managers that you don't need and you get the right ones in. 3 managers. When did we play them? They was atrocious. They've now won something like they're on 17 unbeaten run or something and trying to get into a Champions League place. PSG have looked very good out there this year. Barcelona have looked good.
Yeah. And I'll say this, and it's a controversial comment. I remember I was on stream with Box Office and Saba, and I understood what Alex was trying to say because a couple of people have said this. I'm not saying this about Pep. Pep is a legendary coach, but the game changed with the system type football because some of the creative players, because people think Pep was the coach of Barcelona when Ronaldinho was there. He was not there when Ronaldinho was there. And other than Messi kind of having that free pass, there's a system football that you see in modern football where back then you would have a player who could take kind of like the game at the scruff and be creative back then. I agree with we are Spurs, so like 20, 25 years, players were allowed to be creative. They're not allowed as much anymore. That's what I say for Jack Grealish. He got rings at Manchester City, but he lost his creativity because there's a system. You're not allowed, and I know some people that have a debate, about that, but I understand there's some players, past players and coaches that says that that this new regime of managers in the last 15 years have changed football. Because for me, growing up, I felt the players were more creative than now. I think everything's system, robot, and I'm not.
It's almost boring at times. Sometimes it almost gets boring for me.
Oh yeah. Now I'm not saying it's not winning football. It is winning.
That's just making myself sound old, basically. But I can say I've seen 10 times better than this shit that I watch these days, and that's not just at Spurs.
Yeah, but on that note, I want to end off on this. I will say this because, like I said, I try to stay away from drama, but I want to just thank the people.
I thought you was going to say something else there.
No, I do want to thank the people who are watching and they want to watch football talk. They want to hear football talk, and I pretty much listen to all the Spurs community, the content creators who talk about football and stuff. And so, there will be haters because, like I said, I'm going to be honest. People talk about my channel and Sava's channel and some others. Even Dan, you were nominated on Twitter. You were nominated on Twitter. Congratulations.
I only just heard about that today. I haven't even checked it up yet.
Yeah,
I've got to
yeah,
check it up after. Yeah,
yeah.
you have to send me the link or whatever, mate. I haven't even looked at it. I
You
haven't
didn't
been
get
on it
nominated on
that
Twitter,
long. I haven't been busy.
and I just love that we are
Love
honest about the team. We love our team. We back our team, and that's why, critiquing our team is also love our team because we want the best for our team. We've been starving for success. This season, I know you guys have said, has been the worst, not even close, the worst. I thought it was bad, the ABB, because I was a big fan, but like this is surpasses depression about this team, man. And I just love the fact that even when we agree or disagree, that we still have that respect. We're not gonna call you a cunt, and whatsoever, because we disagree. And so, continue to support these channels. I know Michael does have a channel, but you know where to find them. You find them here. You find them on Dan's channel. You find them on.
Murray. I'm rated number 7.
Yeah. You made top 7. I was surprised that who was number 1, but I guess anybody that's turned on Ange, even though Happy Clappers who turned on Ange are now they're on the hated list. But I guess the point what I'm trying to say is just being honest about this team, and even if we disagree, we have that respect. And so continue to support, as I put the link, Hospital Hood. Continue to support Michael, either if he's on the Hospital Hood show or on Tottenham Away on Football Heritage TV, Sava's channel, Tottenham on Tour, whatever. Continue to support us, even if you disagree with us, but you know that you'll be respected as long as you're respectful on the chat. And so that's all I have to say. And that's it. Any last words, guys, before we sign off?
Only ranked 7th.
Man,
I'm a bit disheartened in that, but whoever put that, I'll say thank you very much. It's appreciated that I was acknowledged. Yeah,
we didn't make the list, but there's a caveat: we don't have Twitter anymore.
Yeah.
But
and thanks a lot, mate. Whoever done it, it's appreciated. I'll give you a bell and I'll see you in the pub. See you next Tuesday, and leave it at that.
I'll be watching this in about 1 hour and 30 minutes. But definitely, I put the link. Please subscribe to Hospital Hood. We need to get him to 10K by the end of this season. We need to get him there, and Michael, we'll get him to 10K. Actually, he's part of everybody. So he's already hit the
Yeah, I already passed that, mate. Don't worry.
Way past that. But yeah, the next show before my last words is when do we play? Sunday, right? We play.
We play Sunday, I think.
I honestly, normally I will end with predictions, but I'll do Carter, and so we can have the best defensive front. It's Anfield. They know they can win the league. I honestly, I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna
Just
say
say it.
3-1.
Murray, just say it is, mate. We're fucked.
3. We're fucked.
We-
3-1. I'm gonna say 3-1 because Liverpool's good to give up a goal. 3-1. 3-1 Liverpool. Quickly, Dad, the score.
You know what? I think the problem is where Liverpool only need a draw, yeah? They're not one of those teams. So I don't even think Liverpool have been that special this year. Yeah. Not compared to how I've seen them over the past 3 years, for instance. This is where I just think no one in the Premier League this year has been particularly that good. It's just Liverpool have been the better out of everyone. And I still think they're going to come out with our home fans with a big passion behind them to win that league. Not just go and beat us at a scrappy 1-0, but to go out and really give us a pasting to then stand up and say, we just won the Premier League. I personally, they're going to come at us all guns blazing, 4-1. If we're lucky.
Yeah, I think I'm somewhere between 3-1 and 4-1. I just feel like they will do the job easily and quickly and just go into a partidazo mode. We just won't care, like we obviously won't, right? We've lost enough games. One more doesn't change anything for the players. We as a fan base are already resigned, so yeah. 3-1, I think. I think they would just score 3 past us in the first half, most likely. Then just go into a party mode. Probably get drunk in the half, when they go back to the changing rooms, go out drunk second half. Like Van Dijk will probably puke on the pitch, and we will still only manage to score 1 against them. So yeah, that's how I look at it.
Yeah. Nah, I think it's reasonable that it's going to be 3-1, 4-1. We're going to get fucked at Anfield. But yeah, come on, these Spurs, I guess. It's been that kind of season, man. It's just, yeah. But on that note, please, once again, subscribe to Hospital Hood and the other channels, like I said, Football Heritage. Subscribe to that. Tottenham on Tour. Just the regulars who are on this channel. 3 Kings, Spurs Kings. Subscribe to those channels. And other than that, we are out.
Cheers, love.
All right. Play the outro. Okay.
The first game we look for, Robbie. Tottenham away. When we got Tottenham away.